I'll say this as a side note too, just for guys. I mean, it applies to women as well. But the big thing I was struggling with too during that year period was I was like, it would have been so much better if I got a divorce, had a year to process that, and then met Nicole. Mm-hmm. That would have been the perfect timeline. Now, of course, timeline.
The actual perfect timeline would be, if you're not in a relationship where you're being treated properly, you should leave.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to get stuck, in a situation that you don't feel like is the right one for you. Right. And then time ticks on, and then now you're fighting against time and other circumstances, too. But I agree with at least the divorce part.
But so a year would have been nice. You know what I mean? And that's what I was struggling with. I was like, this would be so much easier if I just had a year to process this, and then everything would be great. And that's why I was like, I have to break up with her because I need time to process it, and it's hard to emotionally process something when you're emotionally involved with someone, so it makes things hard to do that. So don't do that to yourself. And that's also why don't have affairs, is because that literally will mean you will have no time to process the previous thing. It's bad for other reasons, but also that you won't have time to process. Right. Mm-hmm. And so you don't think that you're going to need time, but you do need time to process. It is very hard to keep it together. That's why most affairs end up not working out when people get together after an affair, is because that transition is not a clean transition. It needs to be a clean transition. So,
don't have affairs.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, obviously but also just to think about, the people talk about the rebound. Mm-hmm. If you go through a breakup, a significant breakup, or a divorce, give yourself a year, maybe 2 years before you get into a serious relationship again. That's the smart advice, because you're going to...
I feel like people do that. It's just when they
get people are like,
messy.
All right, ready to go get on the dating apps. I'm like, don't do it.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that.
But I think also on the take back thing too, that it makes sense also if someone has demonstrated change.
Right. Well, that has to be the thing. That's why the actions have to match the words. You have to demonstrate it. You have to show it.
Right. Over time.
Even with our connection, there's no way, like I said before, we would have lasted if you didn't show me that there was a difference. But I already knew you were that type of person. So I expected that, but if you didn't, then obviously this wouldn't have worked out the way that it did now. But I think relationships are complicated, and we come on here and we try to tell people the best way to do the things, and it's because we've done and been through the messy things too. We're not perfect, but that's why we feel better than perfect, because we've been through the imperfect times, and we've broken up, and you've had a mental breakdown, and we're still here. We made it through those things.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it gives you more confidence in your relationship. I'm not saying go break up so that you build more confidence either, but I'm just saying that don't feel like, I can't take this person back because then I'll look this certain way, or
it should not be about that.
You can't do that, because it has to be about the relationship. Right. And that's what I had to do in all of those messy situations that we were in back then, is be like, look, I'm going to look ridiculous. I'm going to look like a pushover. I'm going to look like some woman that's getting walked all over by some man that's just breaking up with her. But I knew that wasn't the reality. And even if people thought that was, I was okay with them misunderstanding it, because our relationship was the best relationship that I'd ever had. So it's like, even though these things were happening and they were really hard and they hurt really bad, it was still worth it to take you back and to, move forward and make our relationship better and stronger. And then we ended up here.
And it helped a lot too. I think once I got back to San Diego and I was being a good parent to Sophia, then was like a lot of the guilt and stuff and the shame disappeared. You know what I mean? I felt like I was back on track and doing what I was supposed to be doing. Because it's hard to, you when you have something so good, that was also part of the thing, is like when you have something so good, you feel like you don't really deserve that because you did something bad to get it,
Right.
That's,
I get that.
It's
that's
hard
also
to,
why I don't have affairs.
yeah, it's hard to get past that though in your head. Like you have to really, because you have to realize, okay, well, this is what it is now, and you have to let that stuff go. And people make mistakes and they do wrong things, but
Yeah.
So there's a lot to it for sure.
I mean, hey, before you even came along, and I got cheated on a long time ago. Go back to the cheating episode.
Yeah.
My best friend and my boyfriend at the time cheated together, and then they, got married. They had a kid, and I was like, how can you have a foundation built on this? They both cheated. She also had a boyfriend at the time.
Right.
And I'm not saying what they did was right.
No, but
I'm saying, it didn't really seem to bother them that much. They kept going. And I'm not saying that it's the right thing by any means, but, sometimes that happens and it sucks. Like, it should be avoided. Like you said, like, if you're planning to get a divorce or you can't be in your marriage anymore, get a divorce. Don't have an affair, get a divorce.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
And then take a year or two to process it.
Yep.
And then go back out there.
Yeah.
Like, that's the correct way. I'm not promoting cheating by any means before all the people come for me.
Right. No.
In the comments, like we mentioned in the beginning of this episode, they always just want to grab one little piece and go for it. But, life isn't always perfectly clean cut, looks the way that you want it to be. Like, sometimes you got to go through the mess to get to the good stuff.
Yeah.
And that is definitely what we had to do.
Better than perfect, we stand.